about being on TV. So you're going to take off at 10:45, and you figure how far today?
Well, we'll see. I'll shoot for the 22, 25 mile mark, and we'll see. I think it's safe.
Once we get beyond there, it's going to be pretty dicey, right?
Yeah, once, as long as I stay pretty much on the eastern side of the Barrier Islands, I should be okay. Well, although the northeasterly wind, so it's tough. So we'll see. We're just playing it by ear.
Okie dokie. Well, there you go. That's the latest, and we'll be watching the launch, and we'll have it for you later on in the show. Back to you guys.
It was late morning on a windy day in Miami in early May, and there we all were watching my wife Margot get ready to launch her canoe on a journey which would take her to Camden, Maine over the course of the next 11 weeks. It was the adventure of a lifetime. Or at least I hope it is, if you know what I mean. Actually, it would be an adventure for the whole family, in different ways. It all began with her learning about the imperiled state of the ocean. The work of 2 independent commissions on ocean policy and numerous studies highlight how warming water reduces its capacity to absorb carbon, and how it's killing the populations of phytoplankton, which are the microscopic lungs of the planet. And how that's also killing the coral reefs, which provide for the ability of the ocean to sustain life. The more she became informed, the more she wanted to do something to make others more informed. Her idea for an East Coast paddling expedition to spread that message became her call to action. Awareness of a problem is always the first step in addressing it. But she still needed to gather all the support she would need to assemble the plan, certainly more than a minor detail. She started by using Google Earth, atlases, and road maps to plot her path, generally in 25-mile increments, searching for boat landings, marinas, and other areas to dock at night.
So I figure I'm going to go and go and go, and then when I have a bad weather conditions pop up, I will definitely have a day. But I'm pretty confident that I can do 25 miles a day consistently, based on some of the conditions that I've been paddling this summer in the Barnegat.
She took a U.S. Coast Guard course in boating safety and navigation. She also consulted with a handful of people who had made similar trips before. And there was one other simple matter. She needed a boat and knowledge and experience in how to use it. We'd purchased a single-person outrigger canoe secondhand over that winter, and she'd get it into the water for the first time in May 2006, which was 1 full year before her launch would take place. Over that year, she trained every opportunity she had, every weekend and many weekdays for over a year.
And of course I'll be listening to Noah, although, if I listened to Noah religiously and heeded every word they said, I'd never have paddled last summer, any weekend at all, because every weekend was a small boat advisory. And I have to tell you, it was kind of empowering to paddle against a strong wind and see little smaller craft, motorized craft, having to be towed back in the same direction I was going.
As winter approached, she paddled her winter training canoe in the Mullica River rather than the outrigger canoe in the Barnegat Bay, all but for 3 weeks in February when the river was frozen over. She also competed in several paddling and row events, which was her opportunity to learn the sport, participate, and become part of the outrigger community. She had made many friends and took in much advice, as what's known as the Aloha spirit permeates throughout the outrigger network. Through the Outrigger Community Network, she was even offered the use of a brand new boat for her journey, the Outrigger Connection Fuse.
Boat. It's a loaner. Eric McNett of Eastern Outrigger is very graciously providing me a boat for this trip, and it is an outrigger canoe, so it's extremely lightweight. It's extremely seaworthy. The outrigger has a pretty strong history. Actually, it was a 6 to 8 men cruise of the Polynesian cruise that went all over the place and populated the Hawaiian Islands, and among others. So it's a pretty seaworthy canoe. This one's a sit on top, single person, 20 foot long, probably about 21, 22 pounds.
As a member of the Jersey Shore chapter of Surfrider Foundation, she worked through that organization to broker the participation of the 25 chapters along the eastern seaboard. The chapters provided a tremendous platform for local logistical support throughout the coast, where attention from her paddle would also help them spread their message. Each chapter would host a media event to greet her, get press coverage for her effort, and also use the opportunity to highlight their local initiatives. The chapters also used the paddle effort as a benefit to raise money, modeled on a walkathon where every mile of coastline paddled earns a pledge. She also sweated a partnership with the National Environmental Trust. She had a contact who worked there who had set up a meeting for people there to hear more about Margot's paddle event. But Margot mistakenly understood her invitation to a conference call to be for an in-person meeting. So he drove down to Washington, D.C., where Margot walked into the meeting unexpectedly.
This crazy lady showed up in our office and said, "Hey, I'm going to paddle my outrigger canoe from Miami to Maine." I said, "Well, Margot, that's pretty ambitious of you." I said, "Have you done any long-distance canoeing before?" Her answer was no. I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, have you, are you semi-professional? Or you do this on a circuit or anything?" And she said, "Well, it's kind of friendly competition and I'm not very good." I said, "Okay." And, I'm talking to her a little bit more and I said, "Well, Margot, do you have a support crew?" No support crew. And I'm thinking to myself, oh boy. Then I asked her the crucial final question here, which was, do you know how to navigate? And the answer to this one is still maybe sort of no. But anyhow, Margot left the office that day, and I thought, okay, well, that's probably the last I'm ever going to see of this woman,
She walked into the meeting with only her ideas and enthusiasm. She walked out with the initial makings of NET's commitment to support her journey. I'd call it a home run. At the time she approached them, NET was running the COOL campaign, Conserve Our Ocean's Legacy. In brief, NET was working to influence public support for new regulations which were being developed to end unsustainable fishing practices. The COOL campaign was intended to ensure that the rules would be strong and effective. NET saw Margot's paddle as a vehicle to get public exposure to the deep-sea issues they were working on. They became especially attracted to the notion of a stay-at-home mom taking an extreme measure to highlight the plight of the oceans. So there it was. Throughout the journey, NET would help her spread the message that overfishing does indeed jeopardize the capacity of our oceans to sustain life. In turn, they promised to fill most of the gaps in her equipment outfitting, ground support, and media relations not already being handled through Surfrider. Surfrider's ability to bring in real people to community events was perfectly matched to the national-level media template of NET. Margot would carry the messages of both as she paddled her way north. In effect, her paddle served as a lightning rod to draw media attention to those messages, which would move northward at about 25 miles a day. She was also successful in arranging for donations of equipment or other support from some commercial sponsors. In the final weeks before her launch approached, she worked through the final details.
What I'm going to do is kind of what the people who hike the Appalachian Trail do, which is mail down stuff that I'm going to need at certain points where I'm going to be stopping.
As the launch approached, she'd already begun being interviewed about her impending trip. She also became familiar with all the new gear and equipment she'd be using, like her GPS device and emergency location beacon.
There's a lot of homework involved with this trip, too, just to try to get a grip on the local issues. And then the not-so-local issues, which affect everyone, which is basically the pollution in the oceans, the global warming, with how that's affecting the oceans. There's everything.
The time was nearly at hand.
There's this guy, Mick Bird, out on the West Coast, who was going to be the first guy to row around the world. And he told me when I called him, and he was so gracious and spent so much time with me on the phone, he said, the hardest part is going to be getting the boat in the water. And it has been. I mean, there's all the details.
And now, after 18 months in the making, the launch was upon us.
Taking a swig and sitting atop this 25-pound outrigger canoe made of ultralight carbon fiber graphite is 39-year-old house mom Margot Pellegrino, who's about to make an incredible journey.
I'm going to paddle from this outrigger canoe from Miami to Camden, Maine.